Hey friends, and welcome back to Sewing from Scratch, or welcome if you are new here. I am Kate, and this is where I share everything I know about sewing and learn so much more along the way. Couple housekeeping items to start. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers and there is going to be a giveaway, so make sure if you are not subscribed already, you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on the big giveaway that's coming very, very soon. Next, just a big thank you to those of you who are subscribed and watching this video and who have watched other videos of mine. I really do appreciate it. There's just really no words that can describe how humbled I am to have literally thousands of people in some cases watching my videos. It's kind of surreal. So, on to today's topic. We are going to discuss sewing costs. Is it cheaper? What are the costs of sewing? Do I need that? And how can I do it for less? So when you start thinking about sewing or making your own clothes specifically, you might be thinking, oh, it's so much cheaper. I can make my own clothes for cheaper. Of course I'm gonna get into sewing. Well, honey, that's not the case, and I'm sorry, the short answer is there is no short answer. And sewing is a good skill to have regardless of what your plans are for your skill, but the reality is it's probably not going to be cheaper in the long run. That's because a lot of what is in stores now, especially the bigger stores like Walmart or Marshalls or Winners, anywhere that you shop for clothing for yourself, is fast fashion. And what that means is that the manufacturers, not all of them, I do not know every manufacturer's labor policies, but a lot of them are manufactured in places where the seamstresses do not make a living wage, and in a lot of cases they are treated very poorly. Just keep that in mind when you're factoring in the cost of the garments that you're purchasing. By sewing at home, yes, the fabric might be more money. Yes, it takes you time to do it. You are making things to last and you're learning a skill for yourself as well. So those are all things that you can't really put a price on. If you want to go further into your ethical and sustainable practice, you can look for fabric shops that are ethical and sustainable. There are a few out there. There will be a video coming shortly on that. If you're interested in that, just hit that subscribe button and I will work to get it out for you. And I just want to mention one more quick little thing about sewing for yourself. I do recommend or push or try to advocate for slow sewing and more intentional sewing. So not just sewing up a whole bunch of things at once. I used to be guilty for this for sure, and I still I love to sew, so I just want to keep sewing garments. But the reality is I don't need all the garments that I want to sew. So I'm just taking more time for each garment and really enjoying the process and learning more and trying to really hone my skills as I am doing that. Because the fashion industry is the second most polluting industry in the world. If you were to look up some of the stats on that, it is disgusting, and the truth is I could actually vomit from thinking about the waste that is produced in terms of the fashion industry. Not gonna get into that, that's a video for another day, but I just want to say be conscious of how much you are consuming in terms of fabric, and think about where that fabric came from and what has to be done to produce a meter or a yard of fabric. Now, on to the actual topic of this video. Okay, so when you first get into sewing, like I'm sure many of you have just recently found sewing through quarantine or whatever, you think, awesome, I'm gonna buy these few things and I'll be set to go and I can sew up anything I ever want to. Yeah, the things you really need to get started are a sewing machine, thread, and needles and scissors, some kind of measuring device, pins, and then something to sew. So some sort of fabric. Whether you buy that or somebody gives it to you or you upcycle something from your closet, those are all things that you need to get sewing. Now, that is kind of the bare minimum. And yes, you can do a lot with that. But, and here's the catch, the hidden costs of sewing are pretty much everything else. So this is especially prevalent if you're in Facebook groups or on Instagram and you see all these really cool pretty things like little pretty snips or like a magnetic pin dish. There's all kinds of things out there to help a sewist have an easier time with his or her journey. And they're amazing. I am so guilty of buying all the things. Look at this. Like a container for my thread. But stuff like this, you don't need. It is not a need. Is it a want and a luxury? And is it gonna make your life easier? Abso-freaking-lutely. But it's not a need. So I'm calling them hidden costs. And those are things like all of the extra doodads, like the magnetic pin holder and the tweezers, which arguably could be necessity, but you probably have something in your home that would work instead. The little specialized containers, things like that. Oh, you also need bobbins to get started, but those usually come with your machine. Buying more bobbins, that maybe is an extra for you. Buying all kinds of thread, extra machines like a serger or a cover stitch machine. I have both. Extra basic machines like I have 3 straight stitch sewing machines. Actually, technically I have 4, but the other one is not in my home yet. Things add up, and if you fall in love with sewing, you just want to embrace every single aspect of the art, and you start collecting things like fabric. A lot of us think of our fabric stash as an art collection. If you start curating your fabric and you're buying things that are luxurious, or the print is just so gorgeous that you can't not have it, things like that become valuable to you regardless of the price, and you want to have it. That can be an additional cost, especially when those prices per meter start getting $30, $40, $50, $60 and beyond. I would say those are hidden costs that you didn't expect to get into when you started sewing. More things that you probably didn't think of when you started sewing. Notions. And this includes anything from zippers to buttons to hardware to snaps, bra findings or swimsuit findings if you get into bra making, elastic, anything that is supplementary to creating whatever you're sewing, a garment or a bag or home decor or whatever. So any of that kind of stuff is what we call notions or haberdashery. If you're in the UK or Europe, other parts of the world call it haberdashery. We mostly call it notions here in North America. And a lot of those things will be a necessity depending on what you are sewing. So another thing that can be a hidden cost that you may not have expected, or maybe when you started sewing you were thinking, I don't need that. Patterns. So if you're getting into garment sewing, do you need a pattern? No, you don't need a pattern, but you're probably gonna want one. You're probably gonna want a few. You might even want hundreds, like a lot of us have. You didn't hear that, did you?
Yes, I did.
So patterns can come in 2 different versions. They can come in the paper copy or the PDF copy that you download and then either print at home or at a print shop. If you purchase something at a shop, so it comes in the paper envelope, you take it home, you pay your $20 or whatever it is, you bring it home, it's ready to go. However, you might want tracing paper to trace over that so you don't actually have to cut into the actual pattern that you just spent a lot of money on. Tracing paper, hidden cost. If you purchase a PDF pattern download and you then need to get it out of your computer somehow or out of your phone. So a lot of people are getting into projectors, which I think is amazing, and that is my goal for 2021, is to be set up in my studio for a projector. It's not something we're ready to do just yet, but I am looking forward to the day when I can do that. For the rest of us who do not have projectors, we have to get that pattern printed. So a lot of people print at home just on regular computer paper with their regular at-home printers. This is a great option, but then you gotta put it together because it only comes in these 8.5 by 11 sheets and you gotta make a whole big page of it. So you either need tape or glue. I recommend glue stick. It's really easy that way, but that's kind of a hidden cost too. Yeah, you might have some on hand at home, but eventually it's gonna run out, right? You're gonna need to buy more. All these little things do add up. If you print at a print shop, that can range in price per page. I pay about $5 to $6 a page from sewyyc in Calgary, which I highly recommend, and I will not get my patterns printed anywhere else as long as she is in business. Deb is taking a little break right now due to what's going on in the world right now, and she's gonna have a big order for me when she gets back in business. Deb, please open up as soon as possible. I am missing you. Anyway, so that is another cost. Once you pay for that PDF pattern, you need to get it printed. Then there are the upgrades. So once you get into sewing and you're thinking, oh, maybe it would be really nice to have something to do this job for me. For example, making bias tape. There's a little maker that you can get that will fold the fabric for you, and you just run your iron along it and it makes bias tape. Yeah. I'm telling you that now after you've burnt your fingers. There are loop turners and bodkins. Another upgrade that you might want to look into is a cutting mat and a rotary cutter. These are borderline essential in my mind. I think if you're doing a lot of sewing, it will pay off very quickly because it saves you a ton of time and you're going to enjoy it a lot more than tracing and cutting. So, do you have to buy any of this stuff? No. You don't. The things that I mentioned at the beginning about being essentials, that's really all you need to sew. You know what? You don't even need a sewing machine. You can sew with a needle and thread, and you can sew beautiful couture garments with that. It was done for many, many years before the sewing machine was invented. So how do you avoid this cost grabbing or the need to like want more? I don't know if that ever can be done. I think a lot of people struggle with consumerism, or you know, they absorb all these ads and influences and everything in the media telling them they need to buy, they need this to make their life easier and blah 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 blah. And yes, absolutely, I am not saying that this stuff does not make your life easier. It will make your life easier, but at what cost? If this is your hobby and this is what you want to spend your money on, go for it. Don't like deprive yourself if that's what you want to do. Just please don't go into debt for something like a magnetic pin holder or a PDF pattern that you really love. You know, it might only seem like $10 or $20 here, $10 or $20 there, but it really adds up quickly, and you can get yourself into a lot of trouble with that because next thing you know, you'll be buying an expensive machine that you can't afford. So some ways that you can save money is just don't buy. Just set yourself a rule. I'm not gonna buy in all of May. I'm gonna buy no extra things. I'm gonna sew with my stash. I'm gonna work through things I have. I'm gonna use patterns I already have. That's a great way, and that's kind of what I like to remind myself is I don't need to be buying right now. I have all this stuff in my house that needs to be used up, so why am I buying more? Take it day by day. I'm not gonna buy anything today. Delete certain apps off your phone if you need to, all that kind of stuff. Another way to save a lot of money is by buying secondhand. So I know this is really tricky right now, but when thrift stores and garage sales do open up, those are gold mines for sewing supplies. I mean, I'll link it below, my thrift video where I found a sewing machine for $20. You can find all types of notions, you can find patterns, you can even find fabric at thrift stores and garage sales. Garage sales are great for upcycling clothing because a lot of people are selling that clothing for like 50 cents a piece, $1 a piece, cheaper than most thrift stores. So that's a great place to try and find things to upcycle or cut apart to make new garments or bags or pillows, home decor, whatever you want to make. Grab something that costs very little money. You might also have people in your life, friends or family, that are getting rid of things like sheets or old blankets or curtains or old sweaters, things like that, and they were just gonna throw them out in the garbage or to the thrift store or wherever. Ask them if they have anything that they could give to you instead, because you're practicing your sewing and you don't want to spend a lot of money on fabric right now. Another way you can save some money is don't buy patterns. There's a plethora of free patterns on the internet. There's even some Facebook groups dedicated to free PDF patterns. Another way to save costs is to buy a book. So oftentimes you can buy a book that has sewing skills in it and it'll teach you a lot about the sewing world, but it'll also give you patterns in that book. So I know Tilly and the Buttons has a book, or a couple books. The Great British Sewing Bee has books. I'm sure there are others. I know there are others. I don't know to what extent the patterns are in them, but there is even a book that teaches you how to sew garments with no patterns. It's just using basic shapes, and that's next on my wish list. So I will link that book below for you guys if I can find a link for it. And I think you're gonna get more bang for your buck out of that because you can do so many different things. If you do have patterns already, another great way to save money is to hack them. So you already own this pattern, you probably already have paper at home, just trace it out, make some adjustments, and see how it goes. There's a ton of different variations you can do to any given pattern. So that's all I really wanted to mention today, that sewing can be expensive, but it doesn't have to be. And is it cheaper than making your own clothes? Well, depends what you consider cheaper. And I really want to encourage you to slow down, focus on what you're sewing, and try to consume a little bit less, because we are a part of the fashion industry that is contributing to this disgusting amount of waste and pollution in our universe. So have a great day. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give it a big thumbs up if you found it useful, and I'll catch you on Thursday. Bye!